So thinking about how we oversee teacher development time and monitor the progress that I suppose teachers are making and how the whole strategy is working. In the main, we've done a lot of communication, so it's really important that we talk with leaders within the schools and the head teachers, and we're fortunate enough to have regular head teacher networks. So during that time, we dedicate specific time to discuss the progress that we're making with teacher development time, the challenges, the successes that we're having, anything that needs ironing out in terms of just the strategy and the running of the teacher development time, because it's quite complex. But also we also talk with the teachers, so we're fortunate to have a team that's dedicated to teacher development time, which is called the Teacher Development Platform, and on that we're able to communicate for the first time really with all teachers across the trust, and it's a great way to sort of have conversation, to put surveys out, to talk about how often they're getting their teacher development time, are they getting it at a regular basis, because that's important, because we want it to be consistent across the trust, but also to get their opinion about how they're learning within teacher development time, and to hear about some of the successes that they're having with their teaching. And then in the education team, part of the focus this year is when we're going into schools to do school improvement work, is to look at and talk about with leaders and the teachers about the impact of teacher development time, and really looking at those teachers that are needing support within particular areas, how it's impacting on our focus with disadvantaged children, how it's impacting on the use of blended learning and technology within the classroom, and really having those conversations. And so a lot of it is soft evidence, but also we are formally recording the impact that it's having through the surveys in the Teacher Development Platform.
And how is that platform set up? What is that? Can you just explain that?
So it's I suppose it's does two jobs really. So it's a way of communicating with the teachers. So every teacher in the trust is a member of that team, and within that team there are different channels that are focused around the trust teaching and learning strategy. And within the team, we've also put the teaching and learning strategy from paper form into OneNote, so that it's more accessible for all teachers. And we've updated it as well in line with the early career framework, and also the guidance and expectations with our blended learning strategy. So I guess really in the main, it's a great resource for teachers to go to when they're having their teacher development time. They can use it to sort of benchmark their areas of strength and areas of development, so that they can take that and have those conversations as a starting point with their coaches, I suppose. But also it's a great place for all of our lead professionals, our experts within the trust within particular areas, to update those key areas of the strategy with resources, with materials, with research papers, so that the teachers have got a place to go to, so that they don't have to wade through lots of books when they're using their teacher development time. If they're looking at effective feedback, they can go to that area within the team and find the resources for that, or if they're looking at inclusion for learning, they can go to that section as well. So, but for me, I think it's really exciting in the fact that we can now communicate with all teachers across the trust within that team, and I think that's a great strength of that. We're thinking about the impact of teacher development time, which is really important because it's a huge strategy, and it's a huge investment across the trust. And we want to be able to show that impact, and it's difficult. We've discussed with head teachers how we will measure the impact. Do we formally sort of grade teachers? Do we look at the progress that individuals are making over a period of time? A lot of the evidence that we're using at the moment is talking with the teachers. So some of the surveys that we're putting out across to teachers is showing the progress that they're making in their own development. A lot of the conversations that we have when we go in and do school improvement work are with the teachers, talking about what has their focus been and how has that impacted on their practice within the classroom, whether it be around their use of cognitive science, their use of retrieval or scaffolding, or looking in finer detail at how they're supporting individuals that might be disadvantaged. A lot of our teachers are using it to study on the MEC and to do the nuggets of learning within that, so that they can then improve the use of technology within the classroom. So we're seeing a greater clarity, greater understanding about how that could be used to support children in the use of blended learning. But we're also seeing and hearing improvements from our lead professionals. So the support that's provided from them through our school support plans, the conversations that we're having are showing that teachers are making progress and they are making improvements. And then of course ultimately what we want to see is standards rise. We want to see children's attainment and outcomes to be better than national, and that's always our aim. But particularly this year with our focus on disadvantaged children, we want to see that gap closing, and I think it's been really effective to have a whole trust focus so that in teacher development time, whatever area we're focusing on as a teacher, the main goal is to ensure that those gaps for our disadvantaged children close. So I guess ultimately, in the end, the impact will be reflected in the Trust's data and outcomes for children as they leave primary going into secondary. So in terms of how teacher development time has evolved, it took a long time to get the strategy in place, and a lot of planning beforehand, and a lot of vision thinking and communicating, and lots of collaboration with the leaders within the schools so that we could get them on board, and also that we could iron out any I suppose challenges that we would see as we started the teacher development time. In the early days we did sort of trial the idea of covering the classes, looking at how we would release the teachers. So we didn't just go in full on. We decided that it would be more appropriate to try it for a period of time with a couple of year groups to see whether the quality of the recorded virtual lessons that would release the teachers would be good enough to provide that sustained period of learning for those children, and whether the subjects were right as well. Once we got that sorted and we were happy with that, we then sort of launched it basically. So we started with the Trust Conference, which was all around self-efficacy and the importance of being motivated to learn for our teachers, which was really exciting because it gave everybody a focus and a starting point, and an area of study. So we provided every teacher with a book that they could focus on in terms of disadvantaged children. And then we went for it. So basically we launched Teacher Development Time. The first lessons were released, which took a lot of planning, a lot of dedication from some individuals to put these lessons together. They were put out onto the teams for art and computing. And then we waited to see how it would run, and it was really exciting, and the response that we got was overwhelming, and the way that leaders have embraced this, because they see the importance of it and the value that teachers have placed upon it, meant that it sort of ran quite smoothly, and it was because everybody was dedicated to making it work. There have been problems, there have been challenges, but in the main, the consistency of it has been good. So the lessons have ran from September. We've had art lessons, computing lessons that are following the national curriculum. They're facilitated by support staff, cover supervisors within our schools. And the outcomes that we're seeing have been incredible, and we've tried as we've gone along to look at and review the lessons, so all of the lessons are quality assured. We communicate with the leaders of those lessons so that we can try to make improvements, improve the quality of them, get feedback from the teachers and the children about how those lessons could be improved. And I think that's where we are now, and the main thing at the moment, as I've just said, is about now looking at the impact and really starting to get that finer detail about how teachers are moving their practice forward. But we are finding as well that there's less teachers that are needing that formal support, those informal support plans across the trust, because they're getting that regular coaching and development for their practice.